It's been 8 years since I first realized that I'd had homos and fucking retards following me around for the prior at least 7, under the impression there's something personal. But I had no idea why. In order to get away with stuff like this, you have to have a foreign king on the land. I mean, for it to be a religious assertion, it's certainly not a legal one. The Privacy Act makes it illegal to investigate legally. Doesn't mean it doesn't get investigated. I've since traced interference to Saudi Arabia and followed them on the Harvard. And you know what, Harvard? Do you need some help? Washington, Harvard, and I are mutually affected parties. Since then, the apparatus has shown no remorse, no pity in their relentless imitation of a dumb god, a foreign one true creator, and its oblivious church. Well, in 2015, I counter-investigated. This was before I even... And then in 2016, I came home, and they were like, well, who... I don't know if they were asking me who I worked for or whatever. But I was like, that guy. And then that guy's brother died, and that guy fled the country. Some people think religion is when you shoot yourself in the foot, stab each other in the back, and blame somebody. They think the messenger of Allah is our Satan, and Jesus is theirs. And that this is, the secret, this is alchemy. The Quran wasn't written for another 600 years after the New Testament, you idiots. See, the reason Satan is such a threat is because he's legal. The messenger of Allah, the reason you can't draw him is because he's a fugitive. He might get caught. And if that dumb, cross-eyed, cannibalistic, slave-raiding, barbarian god Allah ever catches up with him, he's going straight to hell. It's not the Muslims, but it is Islam. There's no law against being a goddamn wizard. The IRS just needs to recognize that Islam is not protected as a religion because it is not a religion. Religion is a search for universal and eternal truth. It's not antithetical to our survival. IRS, listen, I love you very much, but you wouldn't know a religion if it jumped out and bit your ass off. Democracy protects majority rights universally. You don't get to say, oh, they're in the minority, they don't have rights. The minority is protected by the same rights as the majority in a democracy because we only have one government. Islam recognizes no distinction between church or state. Anyone who practices ceremonial burial, establishes ties to the land, qualifies as a cult. Shrines, edifices, regardless. We do not require the services of a government which does not enforce trade law at minimum universally. It's a relentless buffoonery is not ours. I am encouraged by our treatment of the situation with China. However, I would caution anybody who speaks English from investing overly heavily in in the snitch coin scam, because they're just getting people with no... You don't actually have to be involved in anything or aware. They're just going after oblivious, victims, robbing, raping, and blaming people and locking them up in their own prisons. Elon Musk, you can't unload Dogecoin fast enough. And don't be so goddamn gullible, because that right now is your best defense. Because if you were knowingly participating in the fascist, colonialist, Coke and Pepsi conversion of American souls, that could be punishable by, it's not legal, so extra legal. The Catholic Church can't build on the mother continent just yet. One day I'm sure we will, when they've paved roads and indoor plumbing. Washington, we sent a humanitarian effort to Mogadishu. They called us racists. So South Africa would be the perfect place. Now we're in arm's reach, If Russia does not see to our interests in the Indian Ocean, because what are they going to do? Move Russia? Now we don't have to cross that. We don't have to go past Jerusalem uh, as far as latitude. This is why I advised half of Wall Street to set their GMT to Jerusalem, because the internet is an epoch in human communication on the order of written language. But it's a world wide web, and any rule we can break, they can break better. If police are 1% of the problem, we can rely upon the international fraternal order of police to supply the other 99. Recognize sneaky little code names for the global caliphate. Recognize bureaucratic redundancies. To their credit, when it was discovered that they had a national governors union, as if they dissolved it right away. Like they got their hands caught in the cookie jar, but they did dissolve it. We're not just paying, one mercenary group after another to usurp our democracy and set up one useless cabinet on top of another, on top of another. We already have drug enforcement. What the hell does disease control mean? First, do no harm, or you're not a doctor anywhere. But our doctors are sworn to our judges, our priests, to first do no harm. You first do no harm right up to the embassy. They roll out the red carpet. You're treated like nobility. And you present your grievances, and then our doctors will handle it from here. You're not going to send people here to advise us on our deficit collection efforts. Theology includes, but is not limited to, the study of what constitutes holy war as opposed to conventional war. See also the Cold War, the war on crime, the war on drugs, the war on terror. If you assert some kind of authority on the land in the United States, your authority is derived directly from the Bill of Rights, which enumerates the will of the people specifically. The Policemen's Union of America, speaking of bureaucratic redundancies, the Union won the Civil War. We already have a union for political purposes. You're not going to stop us from filing a complaint, from filing suit, in order to allow your buddies in Saudi Arabia to persecute us until somebody shoots up a school. This is not a colony. We hold these truths to be self-evident. The T goes in the harbor. You need a map? mfrodeo.blogspot.com. First, I shall do no harm. And then the T goes in the harbor. You need a map?